Welcome back in to the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah insider for KSL Sports. Just got a little update. Britton Covey to the Los Angeles Rams. So excited for Covey. Man, sorry, that just came through while I was recording, while I was starting. Super excited for Covey. He told me that was probably where he was going to end up at the spring game. So excited for him. Excited for the Rams fans, especially a certain one in particular out there. Excited for Covey and all that. But man, it's good to be back. It's been a minute since I recorded. April 3rd was the last episode, and so I apologize for my extended absence here. Where I typically record is currently under construction, so we've had to rearrange some things with my schedule and Kendra's schedule, and so I'm now in found some space and some time to record. But also, we were in Hawaii for the last 8 days, which was great. It was fantastic. So, but excited to get back to it. Excited to get recording again, and we're going to be doing some different things. We're going to be evolving a little bit here. Going to start doing some more video, and you're going to find us on YouTube pretty soon here, pretty consistently. So I'm super excited about what's to come with the Utah Blockcast. So plenty to get to though, because I was out 8 days, and it seems like whenever I go on vacation, there's always quite a bit of positive action for Utah football and Utah basketball, and that was definitely the case for both programs while I was gone. Each program landed a handful of commitments, which I'm going to talk about, and then also going to talk about just kind of sharing my thoughts. Wrapping up spring ball and who I thought helped themselves the most, and just kind of giving some thoughts there. So excited to get to all that. But first, I want to give a shout out to and I'm sure Utah fans will echo this sentiment, but shout out to Smith Snowden, Dallas Vakalahi, and Caleb Lomu. I think Utah fans appreciate these three quite a bit more, over the last couple of weeks. But I think that appreciation should only grow as the year progresses. You're already starting to see quite a few draft pundits and draft analysts and guys that are on Twitter that love to watch film. You're already starting to see a lot of love for Caleb Lomu as a potential first tackle type of guy, which I think will surprise a lot of people given what Utah has on the other side at right tackle with Spencer Fano. But I think it's clear that Caleb Lomu has a ton of potential. I think that's the case for Smith Snowden and Dallas Vakalahi. Each of those guys have tremendous pro potential. I think for Utah football specifically, and I think these three are going to be key pieces, huge, significant pieces to their success in 2025, which again gets back to my point. The appreciation for these three is only going to continue to grow as time progresses. So shout out to those three, specifically Smith Snowden with that epic tweet. What was that? 2 Fridays ago? My goodness. Just incredible. I should pull it up and quote it just to be a good podcaster, but I won't because I'm lazy, and I already tried recording once and failed because I had the mute button on, so I won't. But shout out to Smith Snowden and Dallas and Caleb. So let's get to it. Man, there's been a lot of good stuff. While I was gone. Let's start with the most recent news that dropped this morning, obviously recording Monday afternoon. Tobias Merriweather is a Ute. I have to say, after a pretty surprising portal entry from Zacharias Williams, I think Utah has rebounded quite well at wide receiver. Specifically talking about Merriweather, I think he's a guy that has genuine, wide receiver one type potential. He's got all the tools of a top flight target. It just hasn't come together yet. There's been some injuries and some other things that have contributed to that. But I think this is a guy that, if you're Jason Beck, you're Micah Simon, you're Devin Dampier, you're fired up about because of those elite traits that he possesses. I think, it's going to be, on them to get that out of him. But the fact that you've added a piece that has those type of qualities, I think is really, really exciting. So I think, one for one, if we're comparing Zacharias Williams to Tobias Merriweather, I think you feel like that's a slight upgrade, given the fact that Merriweather has more production, has more experience, and still has, quite a bit of potential to tap into, given the fact that he does have those elite qualities. He's 6'5", he's got speed. There's a clip going around of him and his 21 miles per hour. So he's got speed. He's got a big catch radius with that size. So Devin Dampier can put it in the vicinity and give him a chance. And there's going to be a lot of optimism that he can come down with it. But again, I feel like Zach. I feel like Zach was a really, really, really good Robin. I don't know that he was a Batman. And I feel like Tobias isn't necessarily a Batman, which that just sounds funny. Uh, I'm such a nerd. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Utah fans. But I feel like Merriweather has the qualities to at least potentially get there. And I think again, that's going to be on Micah Simon to get that out of him, to get him to that level. But you're definitely adding a guy that has those elite qualities that you just didn't have on the roster before. So I think to add Tobias to the mix, I think is significant because you've added a player that you feel can man that go-to wide receiver position. And then in combination with the addition of Larry Simmons last week, who, he's been linked to Utah since he was a recruit in 2021. And, finally he ends up in Salt Lake City this time around. And I think if you're Utah, you're really excited about what he brings to the table because you liked him coming out of high school. You liked him as a transfer after he was looking at an opportunity from Ole Miss, but now it finally comes together for you. And Simmons this past season totaled over 400 yards, and I think he's got that production. He's got a similar build and athleticism to Dorian Singer. I don't know that he has the ball skills and route running of Dorian, and I think that's going to be the task for Micah Simon with him specifically, is getting him raising the bar in that sense as a route runner and as a pass catcher. But you like what he's done. Both of these guys had average depth of target of, I think Larry Simmons was 14.7, and I think Tobias was about 16 yards. So you're adding guys that are going to be targeted in the intermediate and deep parts of the field, which I think in combination with this running game and what it's going to do to defenses, where you're going to pay so much attention to the backfield with Wayshawn Parker and Devin Dampier, this offensive line protecting him. There's going to be opportunities for Devin Dampier to push the ball down the field to these two specifically. And I think both of them come to Utah with pretty solid, catch rates in terms of their targets to completions and drops and that sort of stuff. But I know that both of them were targeted down the field quite a bit. And I think that is exactly what Utah wanted to bring into this offense in this receiver room. So, given what they lost with Zacharias Williams, it stung. It certainly stung. Like, you were excited about Zach because, he flashed some serious potential in that UCF game. He had a great offseason where he was named the wide receiver one. But again, I just think, he was super, super solid, super consistent, good size, good athleticism, but he just didn't have those elite qualities that I think, a Merriweather brings. But there is trade-off there. Again, what the elite qualities that Merriweather possesses, he's still got to raise the bar, his floor, in terms of his ability to avoid injury, his ability to be consistent, a consistent producer. But you're willing to take a chance on that. You've got to take a swing, and I think Utah landed a good one in Merriweather and Simmons, that combination. So, we'll see if Utah continues to look to address this wide receiver room. But I think given what they lost with Williams and David Washington, who, it just didn't work here. I think he was at the bottom of the depth chart, just couldn't figure it out catching the ball, from what I was told. And so given that trade-off, I think Utah's come out slightly better given the production and still the potential to tap into for both Merriweather and Simmons. So I like what Utah's done here at receiver. They added a couple of pieces on the defense side of the ball as well. They added another big body and a freshman, a true freshman at that, in Dylan Battle. That happened on Friday. 6'2", 313, and I think he's the same size as Dallas Vakalahi at 6'2", 313. And man, he is a powerful, powerful player. He is just a backfield wrecker. Will he be able to do that as a true freshman next year? Probably not, but he'll still be a guy that will likely find his way into the rotation, just given his size and his ability to hold ground. I think is pretty significant. Obviously, he's high school teammates with Nathan Tillman, and given that connection, I think there's a lot of excitement about that and what that means for those two. Battle, I think, he's not exactly what Utah needed. Obviously, if you're Utah, you would have loved to have added somebody with experience at that size. But to add somebody that has developmental promise, right, where you can have him in the program for a couple years and develop him into a pretty dominant player, I think is just as exciting. So to add him to this group of true freshmen coming in, Utah's got 5 defensive tackles in this room that are true freshmen. So you've got Sione Matuapuaka, you've got Carson Kafusi, who both enrolled early and were involved in spring ball. You've added Dylan Battle to this group now, who he enrolled early at LSU, so he was in a competitive environment. Got a decent amount of work, and he's been at the college level, so he's gotten that work. He's going to have to come in and learn the playbook and all that stuff, but he's been in a college program the last 4 months or whatever it's been. And then you're going to welcome Semi Taulunga and Pupu Sepulona, both of whom are athletic game wreckers. Sepulona is, he played defensive end, he played basketball and volleyball, so he's a dynamic athlete. Those two are going to be more pass rusher types, where I feel like Carson Kafusi, Dylan Battle, those are going to be more your typical defensive tackles that we've seen at Utah over the years. So, to hang on to everybody in this room, in this defensive tackle room, and now add Battle to it, I think obviously you've upgraded there. You've made a solid addition with Battle, and potentially, you look to bring in somebody else, potentially somebody from the JUCO ranks, maybe. So we'll see what Utah ends up doing there. But that's a big one, to say the least, a big one for Utah. In the secondary, I really like what Utah's done at cornerback. Jalen Moson committed officially while I was on vacation. There was a bit of a snafu with his commitment in terms of the communication between him and some of the publications and when he wanted to announce and all that sort of stuff. But he officially announced, I think, on Friday, 2 Fridays ago. And so he's officially joined the program. I know that he loved his visit, loved meeting with Coach Shaw, and believes in their vision for him and what he can become. He loves Smith Snowden and talking with him as well. And, and that in combination with the addition of JC Hart, I really like what Utah has done in this cornerback room. So obviously, you lose Kwamari Shemwell, you lose Sammy Hunter. Both of those guys were 5'10", 5'11", 175-pound guys. You've now added somebody that comes from a lower level, but was a freshman all-conference player, was an all-freshman player in Jalen Moson, who can play nickel, he can play outside. You've also added somebody in Hart who comes from the SEC, who has those elite qualities. He doesn't have much game experience like Moson does, but you're betting on traits and qualities at 6'2", long arms, 4.3 speed. So that combination is really exciting as well. I think Utah's done really well to upgrade here as well. And, when you take a step back and, with all the stress that the transfer portal brings and all that, I think Utah's done really well in utilizing the transfer portal to upgrade at positions. Now, there's still work to be done. I think you're still looking at running back, potentially an addition there. And I think Bryce Duke, he's somebody that I talked to on Saturday and told me he loved his visit. I think he's really excited about the offense and what his potential addition could and fit could be in that running back room. So be on the lookout for Bryce Duke as a running back addition. Utah may look to add a tight end. Um, Obviously they've got Dallin Bentley, who had a great spring. The emergence of Hunter Andrews was pretty significant, and then they moved Otto Tia from wide receiver to tight end. That happened, I think, the second to last week of spring ball, where he split time between tight end and wide receiver, and then ultimately, I think he's made the move to tight end now, which was either in response to or was sort of the writing on the wall to Landon King and his transfer portal departure. But ultimately, I think Otto Tia is going to be a good fit in that same sort of role as a hybrid tight end wide receiver pass catcher type. He weighs more than Landon King, which I think was a pretty big deal. And then again, just the emergence of Hunter Andrews was pretty significant in that tight end room. So you feel good about there, but I think Utah still may want to add a tight end just to shore up the depth at that position as well. But all in all, really like what Utah has done in the transfer portal this cycle. So let's transition to basketball now, because man, this Alex Jensen's program and roster, this is coming together pretty nicely. I think it's important to understand that this essentially is a program that is being rebuilt from the ground up. And I think that is important for Utah basketball. It needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. And what Coach Jensen has done and coming in, I think it's important for a coach coming into a situation like this. I think it's important for a coach to establish a culture, a brand, an identity, all of those sort of things. I think it's important to establish that as the very first thing. What do you want your basketball program to be? What do you want it to reflect? And I think each of the additions that they've made so far have reflected a team that they want to be nasty on the defensive end. They want to be dynamic in transition, and they still want to be capable both inside, outside on the offensive end. And I think it's just a significant upgrade across the board. It's just amazing what this staff has done over the last couple of weeks in putting this roster together. It's been, it's taken some time, obviously, finding the right pieces, finding the right mixture, but I think they've done a really good job of adding pieces that, reflect that defensive culture. He was interviewed, I think Andy Katz interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he talked about the Houston Cougars kind of being a team that he liked and respected quite a bit because of the brand of basketball they played, the defensive intensity, the offensive efficiency. That's the team that he recognizes as a sort of team that he would like to emulate. And I think what we've seen so far with the athletes that they've brought in, namely Ja'Kai Howard, Traore, Seydou Traore, in combination with Keanu Dawes, with Terrence Brown, Elijah Moore. All of these guys speak to the upgraded athleticism that Utah desperately needed. And I think it's really cool to see Alex come in with his staff, with Coach Chills, who's just been cooking on the recruiting trail, and upgrade the roster in the manner that they have. I think it's an impressive job. So love what Utah's done so far with the additions. Obviously, the last three additions have been Babacar Faye and Don McHenry, both of whom come to Utah via Western Kentucky. McHenry is, he averaged 17 points. He's a 3-level scorer, somebody that can shoot from the outside, get into the mid-range, and then also get to the rim with floaters, layups, and that sort of thing. Babacar is a guy that he operates primarily in the paint, but he's still somebody that can he can pick and pop. He can knock down shots from deep. He was 5 of 13 from 3-point range in just 10 games. So if you get a full season from him, you're looking at somebody that could potentially hit 15 of 40 shots, 20 of 45 shots, something like that, which is, you want somebody that is at least a threat at that spot. And I think you've got somebody in that in Babacar, which is pretty exciting. And then, Seydou Traore, just another athletic type, 6'7", 215, coming from Iowa. Elijah Moore had his fingerprints all over this one in terms of recruiting Traore to Utah, along with Coach Chills. And I think Traore, again, just another athlete, good length, able to defend multiple positions. The defensive, what they're going to be able to do on the defensive end with these types of athletes is just super exciting. With Ja'Kai Howard, with Traore, you're just going to be able to switch a lot of things. You're going to be able to just do a lot, which is really, really exciting. So, and beyond that, each of these guys are athletic types. They're going to be able to get out in transition and finish. And I think that's an area of the game that Utah has just sucked at. To be quite frank, they've not been good in fast break situations. I can't. I've lost track of how many missed fast break opportunities they've had over the years, and it's not just the last few years under Craig Smith. It was an issue under Larry Kay. You've now added athletes that know how to finish a fast break, which is super exciting. But still, you've added guys that have shooting potential. And I think Elijah Moore was dubbed one of the top shooters coming out of the 2024 class. He converted 31% of three-point shots at Syracuse as a true freshman. I think he's somebody that can make a leap to 35, 36% in year two. Ja'Kai Howard didn't shoot a lot of them, but he converted 40% of his attempts. He's somebody that I think can benefit from the sort of offense that I envision Alex Jensen bringing, where you've got these guards that can break defenders down, get into the paint, and force defensive rotations, which will create open looks, in the corner and on the wing, which is where Ja'Kai Howard can knock down some shots. Seydou Traore is a guy that didn't shoot a great percentage, but he's got a decent looking shot. It's not broken. I think these guys are going to benefit from having a coaching staff that is familiar with, the NBA game, that know it's not just about guys that have good form. It's about knowing when and where to take shots. And I think that level of instruction is really going to benefit players like this who are going to learn the game at such a higher level that it's really going to help them. And I think too, Don McHenry, he was a big volume shooter this year, and part of that was due to Western Kentucky losing two of their top three scorers in Babacar and then one other guard that they lost to injury. But I think you go back to his year, the previous year at Western Kentucky, he was a 37% shooter. It was just that, his attempts went from, I think, 170 to like 120. So from year two to year one. So, with him, he can be a knockdown shooter. I think he can get back to 37% shooting with the sort of options that Utah has and will have inside and out. And so, yeah, so we'll see. Obviously, Utah still has work to do. I think they have 4 or 5 spots remaining on the roster to fill. Obviously, everybody still looking for a center. And I think that's going to be interesting because there are a lot of centers in the transfer portal, but they're seniors without eligibility that are waiting on this 5th year ruling, which is contingent upon the House settlement being, approved. And so, once that's approved, if it's approved, I wouldn't be surprised to see that 5th year of eligibility approved shortly after that. Which would then open up a significant market of centers available in the transfer portal. But I think Utah is fully aware that they need a couple of big guys, and they'll continue to evaluate their options and all that sort of stuff. So I would look at center as being the big focal point. I think there will be some options for him, and then too, I think guard is still going to be an option as well. So. But all in all, really like what Alex Jensen and his staff have done so far in rebuilding this roster. Lastly, getting back to the football program, just have some thoughts wrapping up spring ball and sharing my thoughts here. I I've got the guys that stock up type guys. I've got 8 names that I have to mention, and 5 that I'm going to go a little bit in depth on and explaining why. But the 8 guys that I think improved their stock the most: Ike Garcia, offensive lineman. He was all over the line this spring, and I thought almost every time I watched him, he was making good good things happen. So, like what I saw from Ike, Rayshawn Glover, he was. I think this offense really suits him well, and I think he's going to be a factor for Utah this fall. Again, just the guy that you can throw a nice little dump pass to, and he can create after the catch. So Rayshawn Glover, Dylan Curtis, the kicker, that leg, it is real. He's got some power in that leg. We watched him kick a couple of big ones over the course of spring. So like what Utah has there. Number 5 for me, Devin Dampier, a big stock up for him. More so in terms of the leadership and the personality that he is than just the player. And he's he's a pretty good player. So a big stock up for me. Jackson Benny, number 4. Every time we watched him, he was making things happen. He's a guy that can play strong safety, nickel, maybe even outside corner. He's just that versatile, and I think he's really embraced. He's really taken a step forward in his game from where he was last year to now this year. I think number 4 for me. Number 3, Hunter Andrews. Similar to Jackson Benny, every time we watched him, he was doing something, making things happen. He's going to be a factor in the run game. He's going to be a factor in the passing game. Just a really productive, versatile player. Number 2, Rabbit Evans. Man, he was dynamic, just all over the field. He was making plays behind the line of scrimmage, in the secondary, in the passing game. Really excited for that pairing with him and Teo Johnson. He's made a big leap in his game. So excited about Rabbit Evans. And then number 1 for me, Bird Ficklin. From the first couple passes that I watched to him, the ball just comes out differently than everybody else. He's got a live arm, more accurate than I was anticipating. And obviously the athleticism is there. I think Coach Beck has taken a great approach with him in terms of giving him a little bit, allowing him to master that, and then giving him a little bit more, allowing him to master that. He doesn't have the same sort of command that Devin Dampier has of the offense, obviously, but you can see the potential in him. I think he's got just tremendous potential, and I think he's got to be the key of for the future. Love what I saw from him. He impressed me a lot, and I think he's improved his stock the most. Overall, I think, looking at each position group, I feel good about quarterback with Dampier and Ficklin. I think Isaac, last season, unfortunately did a lot of damage to his confidence. And so it's going to be a bit of a process for him regaining his confidence, but you still see the arm talent. He's still able to make passes that just the other two can't. And I think it's just going to be a process for him in terms of getting more comfortable with the offense and regaining that confidence. I think that's going to be key for him. But you still have him. You've got Ficklin and Dampier. They're doing good things there as well. Running back, really like what Utah has at the running back position. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add one more. I think I mentioned him, Bryce Duke visited over the weekend, raved about his visit. Wouldn't be surprised to see him commit as well. And so that just solidifies the depth here. But Wayshawn Parker, by the end of spring ball, I think looked really, really good, really dynamic. This running game is going to be really fun. I think with Devin Dampier and Wayshawn, that's just going to do so much for the offense. Running behind this offensive line, it's just going to do so much for the passing game and everything else. So really excited about the running back room and the options that they have behind Wayshawn with the Kerry Rogers, who's just tough. He's a tough runner. Devin Green, I think, is a solid option. Daniel Bray is another guy that brings sort of that scat bat type of ability where he's got the speed, he's got the pass catching ability. So really like what they've got there. And then they're still bringing in Rayshon Guillory, who, he's going to be good. And I think with the depth here, you can redshirt him in year one, unless he just impresses. Obviously, you're going to play him if he impresses, out the gate. But I think, given the fact that he's reclassifying a year earlier, you want to give him that redshirt year to just to kind of get to where he needs to be physically. So, wide receiver room, this was a group that there was obviously it was the biggest question mark on the roster. From week 1 to week 5, this group clearly became more comfortable, became more confident, and the chemistry between Dampier and this group was obvious. Still a lot to work on in terms of becoming more consistent hand catchers and avoiding those drops. But I think with the progress that they made in spring ball, combined with the incoming guys and Larry Simmons and Tobias Merriweather, as well as the freshmen coming in JJ Buchanan and Bryson Baker, I think this group is trending up ever so slightly, even with the departure of Zacharias Williams. But still, it's all got to come together. And I think, you've got to acclimate, you've got to get Larry, you've got to get Tobias into the offense. And I think Dampier, that's, he talked about that at the end of spring ball, is making sure that, guys are keeping their mind on football. And I think he's going to be key in helping those guys acclimate themselves into the offense. So, this group did make progress, and then I like the additions, but still a lot to work on with this group. Tight end, again, the emergence of Hunter Andrews was pretty big. Dallin Bentley had a good spring. Otto Tia made the move to this room in, I think, week 4 of spring ball. He split his time between tight end and wide receiver before ultimately making that conversion to tight end in week 5. I think that's going to be good for him and the tight end room. I think, that combined with the emergence of Hunter Andrews, I think just was sort of the writing on the wall for Landon King and why he entered the portal. And still, I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah look to bring in a tight end in the transfer portal just to kind of shore up the depth. Offensive line, this group is just so good. I'm so excited for this group. It's arguably the top offensive line in the Big 12, maybe in the country. It's so good. 2 potential first round tackles. You return all 5 starters. You've got almost all of your depth behind them returning as well. This group, Jim Harding is just doing. He's cooking. He is cooking, and so excited for that group. Defensive line, saw some good things with the addition of Dylan Battle. I think defensive tackle is in a good place. They may look to add one more veteran JUCO type of guy. I don't know for sure. But maybe they add one more. But again, with 5 true freshmen coming in, you're probably counting on 2 or 3 of those guys to contribute, to be factors in the rotation. And then Dallas Vakalahi, you need him to be the guy. And Aliki Vomahi is going to be a solid leader. But yeah, like what they've done there. Defensive end, you feel good about what you have in 4 of those guys, with Lance Holzclaw and Jackson Jones being designated pass rushers. I think you like what you have at defensive end. Linebacker, Colton Swan has just done a fantastic job of recruiting talent to that room. There's so much depth at that spot. It's crazy. And then in the defensive secondary, Scooby Davis had a great spring. He looked so much more confident and aggressive. I think he's really made a good step. Nate Tillman at safety looks promising and looks like a free safety of the future behind Teo Johnson. Rabbit Evans, already talked about him, just all over the place defensively. Cornerback, you're going to have that battle between Blake Cotton and Donovan Saunders continue into fall camp. Need to clean some things up in terms of their play, their grabbiness, that sort of stuff, but you like what you have in them. And then Smith Snowden, man, like, he's so good. He's going to be so good for Utah. I'm super excited and fired up about him. So all in all, just a lot of good stuff going on for Utah. They've done well in the transfer portal and just continuing to rebuild themselves into the contender that we know them to be. I think the last 2 years have been as frustrating for the program as it has been for fans and those that follow the program. And I think they've done well to of utilizing the transfer portal and coming out better with what they've had available to them. So, man, again, I'm excited for what's to come with the podcast. Excited for what's to come with Utah basketball, Utah football. Plenty to dive into this offseason. So excited about all that. Appreciate you listeners, you Utah fans, for tuning in and supporting the Utah Blockcast. This is me signing off.